Hello, and welcome to another edition of Lady Wrestler, the story behind the story. This podcast expounds on issues explored in the documentary Lady Wrestler, the amazing untold story of African American women in the ring, which is now streaming on Amazon Prime Video. I'm Chris Bournet, and I directed the documentary. Lady Wrestler chronicles how trailblazing African-American women like Babs Wingo, Ethel Johnson, Marva Scott, Kathleen Wembley, and Ramona Isbell integrated pro wrestling in the 1950s and 60s. These women were to wrestling what Jackie Robinson was to Major League Baseball. So here's a question with no easy answer. What can wrestlers, wrestling fans, promoters, and everyone in the industry do to ensure that the sacrifices that were made by those original legends will not be in vain? What will it take to bring about continued progress for women, especially women of color, in the wrestling industry? Here to share her perspective is wrestling superstar Amber Rodriguez. Amber was trained by WWE's Dwayne Gill, known to wrestling fans as the comedic character Gilbert, according to ProWrestlingFandom.com. She made her debut in 2012. Amber's signature moves are Tequila Sunrise and Push-Up Facebuster. Her nicknames include the Boricua Princess and the Bronx Bombshell. Her championships include winning Maryland Championship Wrestling and MCW Women's Championship. Now, just a heads up, Amber and I did our interview via Zoom, so the connection was a little choppy, and there are certain places where the audio is a little rough, and if you happen to be watching this video on YouTube, you'll just see Amber's still photo instead of video of her talking. So with those housekeeping notes out of the way, without further ado, here is my interview with Amber Rodriguez. So you're from Alabama originally, correct?
No, I'm originally from the DMV, or East Coast, because I've also spent a lot of time in New York. But I moved to Mobile, Alabama in 2019. I got stationed here, so.
Okay. And I understand that you and your older brother were sort of into wrestling when you were growing up. That's sort of how you got interested in it. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I started training when I was 15.
So what exactly appealed to you about wrestling?
Just the escape of it, honestly. Just getting into a different world, like just getting to literally be someone else and kind of escape from just day-to-day life. I mean, you get a little bit of everything with wrestling. You know, you get a soap opera, you know, you get the athleticism, you know, you get a performance, you know what I mean? I just feel like I've always been in love with it since childhood, and then it's like, why not actually pursue something that you've always dreamed of doing? So yeah, I mean, I just feel like with nothing else, like nothing else gives you that feeling like when you step through the curtain or when you're in the ring and it's you, your opponent or opponents sometimes, and like nothing else matters. Like it doesn't matter what happened at work yesterday. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So.
How did your family react when you started wrestling?
Not the most supportive at first. Eventually they came around. Which now that I myself am a parent, I kind of get it to an extent. Just that fear, because you know we all want our babies to be successful. You know, nobody wants for their kids to not have a life of abundance, and you know what I mean, just have the as long as it doesn't involve a street corner, like, I'd be supportive of whatever it is that she wants to pursue.
Sure.
But to answer your question, like not the most supportive at first, but I feel like once I showed, just persistence and resilience, and that is really something I want to pursue, and I looked at it as more of a career, then I think that's when they came around. My dad, especially.
Sure. So, how do you feel that over the years, how has women's wrestling progressed or advanced, or do you feel it's advanced? Do you feel like wrestlers like yourself are taken seriously for the hard work that you put in and the talent you have, or is that something that's kind of still evolving?
I'm sorry, you were muffled a little bit. Are you asking, do I feel that I'm being taken seriously?
Yeah, well, women in general. Do you feel that?
Women in general.
Yeah. Do you feel that that's something that's something that's advanced in recent years, or do you feel like that's that's an area where progress still needs to be made?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So, on camera, women's wrestling has evolved so much and still evolving, and it's come such a long way. I mean, I said it on a podcast recently, like, we've come so far from the lingerie pillow fights and bra and panties matches, you know what I mean, and to main eventing, to two Black women main eventing WrestleMania. Like, it's amazing, the growth. But off camera, we still have a lot of progress to make. Like, off camera, it really hasn't gotten anywhere as far as, like, just having more female trainers, more female creative writers, just more women in leadership roles, more female decision makers, more female agents. So yeah, backstage is a lot of growth that still needs to happen. But on camera, we've really come a long way.
One thing that I've found that's been very interesting is, on my journey of making the documentary Lady Wrestler and speaking to male wrestling fans seem to have the utmost respect for female wrestlers, and they have an interest in seeing women's wrestling regardless of gender. So it seems like the demand is there for women's wrestling among the fans, but it almost seems like the industry hasn't caught up with the fans. And what do you think the role of the fans is in advancing women's wrestling? Do you think it's just, fans posting more about women's wrestling on social media and, tagging the promoters and the organizations, or just kind of, tuning in greater numbers to the matches and coming out in greater numbers to the matches? What can the fans do to help advance women's wrestling?
Honestly, everything that you just said, just not be quiet about it. Just continue to voice your opinion and voice what you want, and what you want to see out of these companies, and just hold them accountable and put pressure on them to, just step outside of the box and just really produce, good quality women's wrestling. A lot of places are doing it, and there's a lot of fans that, are showing their love for it and just, demanding more of it and just showing their respect for it. And it's great, so as long as that continues to happen, then I think it'll continue to progress. Because, on an indie level, there's still so many promoters or promotions that, I don't see the value in it, or, they just want to throw in a random women's match with two girls that, like, just graduated from wrestling school. And it's like, no shade, but, it's just not cutting it anymore, There is value in it, there's so many options out there now. There's so much diversity in women's wrestling also these days that isn't being celebrated enough, even to where, at a certain point, you're female wrestler, she probably more than likely didn't have tattoos or were told that that wasn't marketable or had to have a certain shape, look a certain way or, be a certain size. To whereas now you've got women that are all different shapes, sizes, colors, tattoos, piercings, all types of stuff. And just that diversity should be celebrated so much more. I know I kind of got off into the weeds, but yeah, I feel like the more fans express these things and notice these things, the more that other people would see that, okay, this is marketable, this is, profitable. So, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day, is money. It's a money game at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And the women that I interviewed for Lady Wrestler, they talked about their day back in the 50s and 60s and how Black women especially had to work harder. Not women, first of all, had to work harder than the men to be taken seriously, but Black women had to work doubly hard to even be taken as seriously as their white female counterparts. Do you still find that to be the case, or has that maybe gotten a little better?
It's gotten a little better. Again, we still have a long ways to go. I feel like, we pay homage and we thank the women that broke down those barriers and opened those doors, you know what I mean? Like Sweet Georgia Brown or like Jazz, Jacqueline, just looking at a woman of color, like as a little girl, like saying, okay, this can be me someday, like it's possible, But these days, I feel like it's gotten a little better, but I do feel like, there can be, like I said, just the diversity can be celebrated more and just, pointed out more. And, it's trying to, what's the word? It's like starting to come to the surface somewhat now. Like there was an indie show recently, Black Girl Magic, and just more stuff like that. Like I think will really showcase us, just on a different level. And even with 2 Black women main eventing WrestleMania this year, like that's huge. So yeah, it has gotten better, but I do feel like there's always room for improvement. So there's always ways to do more. There's always ways to take it a step further and showcase Black women even more. So yeah.
Right. And the women that I interviewed, like Ethel Johnson and Ramona Isbell, they sort of came in on the tail end of the what was considered the golden age of women's wrestling from the 30s through the 50s, and that was sort of ushered in by a male promoter, Billy Wolf. And after Billy Wolf passed away in the 60s, women's wrestling sort of, the popularity waned a little bit until the 80s. It started kind of experiencing a renaissance with Glow and other promotions. So what do you think can be done to kind of sustain the popularity of women's wrestling rather than going through these like boom and bust cycles where it's like really popular for a number of years, then it kind of wanes, then it comes back and makes a revival? What can be done to right what can be done so it's not looked at as like a fad or like just the popular wrestlers of the moment, and then when they retire, go out of the business, the women coming behind them have to rebuild the whole business up again? What can be done to, so there's a consistent support for women's wrestling?
Just like not allowing it to be set back. Like we have to put our foot down, you know what I mean, and not take on roles that don't make us look good. Like if a promoter pitches an idea to you that sounds like something that probably would have worked in 98, but these days it's just like we've come so far from that, then don't do it. You know what I mean? Like it comes with us standing firm. Also, like, it's funny how you mentioned like how can the fans So I feel like as long as women's wrestling stays a topic, as long as it stays in the conversation, then it'll kind of, correspond with promotions and, promoters saying like, this is something that we have to have on here. We have to feature the women, have to showcase the women, because this is what people want to see.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely. So for you, what is your training regimen like? Do you have like a different training regimen when you have a big event or big match coming up as opposed to like your just daily kind of maintenance training regimen?
I stay ready so I don't have to get ready. You never know when the phone's gonna ring. You know what I mean? So whether it's a big match or just, I don't mean to sound like insulting, but just like, I don't know, just like a regular like match or somebody that I've worked like a million times, or, if it's something that's like, a big showcase type deal or whatever. Whatever the match is, like I train the same, you know what I mean? Like, I'm always upping my intensity. I'm always pushing my body. I'm always pushing myself. Being in the military has really taught me just more about like pushing my body to its limit. So, I train at Elevate Pro every Monday. Except this week I didn't go on Monday, so I'm making up for it by going today. I train at Elevate Pro at least every week. And then the gym, I actually go to the gym on my lunch break at work, and then again when I get off work, and then I'll head to training, or like I'll just go run around with my daughter or whatever. Like I always try to stay pretty active. And then even after training or after my other job being an esthetician, sometimes after that, if I'm still like a week, if I still have some energy, then I'll go for a run or something like that. So I'm always moving around, and that's what it's really about. And then, for me, like I gotta keep myself disciplined with training because like my weight fluctuates so much. So I always say like you never know when the phone's gonna ring. So just you gotta keep in good shape and you gotta keep busy.
Sure. I know you said you would support your daughter in whatever she decides to do. Has she expressed an interest in wrestling, or is that something that she's even into? How old is she?
Well, she's 3, so right now she wants to be a princess.
Oh, okay. Okay.
which she can absolutely do. But I'm like, you want to be a queen, like aim higher. She likes wrestling. But she hasn't really, she's only 3, so.
Sure.
But she's very like into just being athletic in general. Like she dances, she works out with me. Actually, we go jogging together sometimes, and I have to keep up with her. She's gonna be a fit girl.
Absolutely. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree, as they say.
Right.
Yeah. Do you have any events or matches coming up, or anything that you would like people to know about that's coming up sometime soon?
Yes. So June 18th, I'm back in Houston for Renegade Wrestling Revolution, and the next day, June 19th, I'm in Foley, Alabama for Revolt Pro Wrestling.
Awesome. And how can people follow you on social media? What are your handles?
So Instagram and Twitter are the same at Amber Rodriguez. And Facebook fan page Amber Rodriguez. I also have my very own line of skincare products. So on Instagram it's Ashley Renee Beauty LLC, and then we also have our website ashleyreneebeauty.com.
Congratulations on the skincare line. How did you get interested in that? Was sort of being an entrepreneur, was that something that kind of always appealed to you?
So it kind of happened by accident.
Oh,
So my sister, who is co-owner, it was completely her idea. She made her own. She didn't like any of the lip scrubs she would buy in the store, so she made her own lip scrub. And she's like, I'm thinking about like giving people samples and stuff, and I'm like, girl, like you need to sell this, like it's really good. And so then I was like, oh, I can make a body scrub, and then it turned into, she's like, well, I can make a highlighter too, and I'm like, well, I can make lip gloss. She's like, well, I can make it. I'm like, we can make all these things and like sell it like a product line. So that's how that happened.
awesome. Well, Amber, you sound like a very multifaceted and busy woman. So again, I appreciate you making the time to speak with me. Big thanks again to Amber Rodriguez for sharing those insights from someone on the inside of the industry, someone who is doing the work every single day. The interview with Amber is part of a series of interviews with wrestling insiders on Lady Wrestler, The Story Behind the Story. To catch future episodes, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And to get the whole story, be sure to stream the Lady Wrestler documentary on Amazon Prime Video. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Catch you next time.